Are you Invictus? Clint, are you Invictus? Are you Invictus?
What does it mean?
You know, when I started the Invictus Mind podcast, my goal was to unite a bunch of people who had a similar ideology or similar characteristic traits. Invictus means unconquerable. So it's an old Greek word for means unconquerable.
Unconquerable.
Honestly, just be totally honest, it was a new concept to me. I had to Google it when you sent it to me. But yeah, I do my best.
Tell me about what the show. What is your audience looking for? Tell me.
This is your first time here. This is the #1 program dedicated to helping individuals maximize their potential and truly become unconquerable. Here we have discussions about what it takes and what it means to experience and magnify political freedom, financial freedom, and spiritual freedom.
Yes, I would absolutely say that. I'm going to keep getting up, right? And I keep getting up and I keep pushing forward. And that's the type of mindset that you need to have.
I never lose hope. I never lose faith. My mindset has always been, if I want something, I don't give up. So let me tell you what is the #1 issue when it comes to being unconquerable.
Okay.
And the #1 word you have to think about here is not intelligence, not savvy, not strength, none of those things. The #1 thing is resilience.
You know I'm Invictus, come on. All right, I'm Invictus AF.
Well, may I have an initiation question for my tribe?
Okay.
Are you Invictus?
I believe I am.
So yes, I agree. I am Invictus.
I totally agree, man. And I think that if there's anybody on this planet that's unconquerable, it's probably me. I am not the type to take orders, and I am definitely in a position that I can stand up for myself right now. So.
And I was like, no way, I know what that word means now.
Yeah, man, very cool concept for a show.
You didn't ask me if I was Invictus.
Well, hello, everyone. It's another wonderful day to be alive, a day to experience whatever life has to offer for good and for bad. This is your host, Mike Corbell, and you are listening to the Invictus Mind podcast, the #1 show dedicated to realizing and maximizing your political freedom, financial freedom, and spiritual freedom. Of course, that word freedom is very subjective. We know that not everyone defines it the same way. But I do believe that there are some basic principles in which, when followed, will present the greatest reward to the seeker of such things. I'll not define what those things are for you, but I'm also not going to shy away from declaring what has worked for myself. If you are listening for the first time, I want to thank you for checking us out, and hopefully we'll cover something today that will encourage you to return. And of course, if you are a returning listener, I thank you as well, because that tells me that I must be doing something right. In any case, if you love this program, please go ahead and leave me a review. We are on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, and wherever else you get your content from. All right, today's going to be fun. On the program with me today is a man who I found to be very interesting. He did reach out to me via podmatch.com, and honestly, I've been loving that website. I have truly found some great and interesting people on it. So as a side note, if you are a podcaster looking for guests, or if you have an interesting story to tell and you want to be hosted on a podcast, then definitely check out podmatch.com. Anyway, today, my guest is a speaker, a teacher, an author, and the host of 2 different podcasts. He is a creator of a concept he calls the Neuro State Rebalancing, or NSR, which focuses on understanding the 4 different parts of the human brain that are biologically designed to bring about a happy and fulfilling life. I've asked my guest to share his story with us today, one in which he calls a roller coaster, how after becoming a successful businessman, his life made a dramatic turn and he found himself losing everything. He found himself penniless and homeless. But the good news at the end of the story is he was able to rebuild his life in a much better and happier way. He is now, among other things I've mentioned, a marriage and relationship coach. So please help me welcome Mr. Liam Naden. How you doing today, Liam?
I'm great. Thank you, Mike. Pleasure to be here.
Great. I almost called you Liam Neeson, and I know you have a particular set of skills that.
Yes, he's one of my lookalikes.
There you go, Liam. Thank you for coming on the show today. I was looking over your website, and I love this quote that you wrote, and I want to dive into it. But you said your brain is a machine. Like any machine, if you use it the wrong way, it's going to create problems and difficulties for you. So get your brain working the right way and watch your problems disappear.
Yeah.
So, like anybody else, I have a a plethora of problems in my life, and trying to deal with them on a regular basis can be stressful and painful. But I guess you found a secret to happiness, or so you claim. Share a little bit about your story, Liam. I'm interested to kind of dive into that.
Sure. Okay. Well, you mentioned before how after a life of being fairly successful and getting most of what most people would consider as enough to have a happy life, I did lose everything, and I did become homeless and penniless, and I had to rebuild my life from the bottom up. But the strangest thing about that experience for me was, I don't know why it happened. Well, I didn't at the time, because I'd spent my life studying success. Like many of your listeners probably, I was always looking for ways to improve myself throughout my life. And I tried many different things, from religion to spirituality to motivation. I learned lots of different motivational techniques, self-help techniques. I learned to set goals and work on changing my mind and changing my beliefs and doing all those things. I went to seminars all over the world. I read books. I did courses. So I was very much into the whole self-improvement. How can I be the best version of what I can be? And how can I be in control of my life? Which, in another definition, is actual freedom, isn't it? Freedom is being in control of your life, basically. So I thought, why has this happened to me when I know how to do all the right things to have a successful life? I've lost everything. How's this happened? And it really led me on a journey to try and uncover how we actually do get the results we get in our life. And there were a couple of clues that I got along the way. The first one was, after that experience, after I spent a few months unraveling all the mess that I'd created or that was happening around me, I noticed my life was getting a lot better than it had ever been before. Before I had lots of success, but I also had lots of stress and problems. And I'd got to the point where I bought into the narrative, I suppose, that problems and stress are natural in life. And if you want something, if you want to succeed, you have to overcome and conquer lots of problems. And you have to accept that stress and uncertainty and all of those things is just a natural part of being a successful person. But what I noticed, my new life, as it were, after my losing at everything experience, my new life was quite different. I was attracting a lot better things into my life. I was attracting new business opportunities, and I attracted a new relationship, someone much better quality, if you want to use that word, than I'd had before, someone much more suited to me. But the funny thing was about all of this, what I noticed was I didn't have the stress and the problems that I'd had before. So I was doing some wonderful things in my life, and I was experiencing true freedom. And I was doing things that I'd always wanted to do. And I was doing some of the things that I never knew I wanted to do, but I was really enjoying. And life just seemed to flow an awful lot better. So that was a clue. What was happening to me? What was different about my life now compared to this life of stress and problems and fighting and struggling and working hard, trying to overcome things and trying to reach my goals? So that really gave me a big clue. And the other thing that gave me a clue was when you mentioned earlier, when I started to do some marriage and relationship coaching, which I still do a lot of. It's a big part of what I do. And usually what the sort of people who come to me are people who've got real problems in their marriage or relationship. They're people who are on the brink of divorce and they don't want it to happen. And I created some programs, and I do some coaching around a certain methodology I use that's very effective in helping people heal their marriages. But I noticed that many people didn't succeed. Many people did, but there were a number of people who didn't. And I thought, what's the difference between the people who succeed in achieving their goal and those who don't? Well, it wasn't a question of motivation. They were all very motivated. It wasn't a question of information. I gave people all of the same information. And it wasn't a question of anything like prayer or, determination, because some people prayed and other people didn't, but it didn't seem to be reflected in the results they got. So what this all led me to is a discovery of what you mentioned right at the beginning, is this machine that we all possess called the brain. And And the weird thing is, we all think about the brain. Oh, yes, I know about the brain, what it does and all that sort of thing. And, we've got a mind and we think, and the brain keeps our body going and keeps all of our organs going. But that's normally the limit, or pretty much the limit, of our knowledge about what the brain is. But the more the more I started to investigate what the brain was, not only was I completely astounded at what the brain actually is, but I started to realize that it's the key to every result we get in our life.
Okay.
And the fact is, your brain is a machine. It's a biological machine, just like your heart is a machine, your lungs are a machine, all of the organs in your body, everything operates really on a mechanical, automatic, and predictable level. It's designed to do a certain job. So when I looked into the brain, I discovered it's firstly the most powerful computer that exists in the universe. It's millions of times more powerful than any computers we have. In fact, it's more powerful to many, many degrees than all of the computers on the planet. Your brain, not just everyone's brain, your brain.
Sure.
So it's an almost infinitely powerful machine. But the second thing about the brain is it's not just designed to keep you physically alive. It's designed to make you thrive. And what that means is it's designed to make you be at your best. Because when you're at your best, that gives you the greatest chance to survive and thrive, which is what you're here for and what your brain is designed to do. So if you really think about that, if the brain's job, if it's an infinitely powerful machine and it has a job, and its job is to make sure that you're the best you can be so that you have the greatest chance to survive and thrive, what does that mean? That doesn't mean just be at your best physically. It means at your best emotionally, mentally, spiritually. In other words, your brain is designed to make you happy. It's designed to make you live the life of total happiness and total fulfillment. Yeah. That's its job. So I thought, well, this is interesting.
That's great.
It is, and it is perfectly logical when you think about it, because when we are physically at our best, we do have the best chance of survival because we can fight off disease, we can fight off enemies and aggressors, we heal more quickly from injury or disease. So the brain's working to do all those things to keep us at our best physically so that we have the greatest chance of survival. But when you're at your best mentally and emotionally, you also have the greatest chance of survival, because that's when you're your most creative, your most resourceful. That's when you get new ideas on how to improve your life and improve the life of others. And it's also when you come up with the best ideas and the best, contributions that you make to societies, perhaps through music, art, creative things like that. So in a really physical sense, this isn't just airy-fairy talk about the mind and, some sort of spiritual sort of idea. This is a physical, biological fact that the brain, in all of its power, is designed to make you happy. Put it in simple words.
Right. You mentioned some key factors there, which I want to address. You mentioned about a factor of motivation or a factor of information. And, I study success as well. And I talk to many people on the podcast who have different interpretations of success and different stories to share. But what I notice is that, it's not the same path for everybody. It's not the same thing that people do. I mean, the self-help industry itself is probably one of the largest industries on the planet, and there's more than enough information about how to be successful. But I think what you're mentioning is it's more of an internal understanding of what's going on in your own body. There's a lot of gurus out there. They kind of combine mind, body, and spirit, and it's all enveloped in one thing, rather than just go out there and read a book and then you'll get better. But I'm interested in your path because my understanding, obviously, when you had I'll just call it a fall, for lack of a better word, when that happened to your life, you mentioned you had already been successful. What were you doing professionally before that happened?
Well, right before it happened, I had a number of businesses, a number of houses, and I'd really spent a lifetime as an entrepreneur. I've owned 18 businesses in my life.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I had a real history of, and not all of them were successful, but many of them were, and most of which I'd sold before, I lost the remaining businesses that I had. So that's been my background, is really with my own business, being an entrepreneur in all sorts of different areas, and alongside of that, studying as much as I could about business, as well as about improving myself personally and physically, including physically, mentally, and in every sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been my passion.
Okay, so you studied some of the great authors and writers that were successful in business, and you got yourself to a point where you had 18 different businesses, and but it wasn't fulfilling a certain part of your life that you found that you needed to hone in on after everything happened, right?
Well, what I really noticed when I look back on it was I'd spent all of those years studying everything I could, and I'd studied religion. I was brought up a Catholic, and for the first 20-something years, I was very into the Catholic religion and understanding the Bible and Christianity. And so I've studied all of those things. I studied spirituality. I went and learned different spiritual practices. I went to seminars with some of the great names in motivational self-help around the world, and read all their books and did a lot of programs. I did a lot of listening to subliminal recordings to self-hypnosis, using different things like NLP, all sorts of these different techniques. But there were a couple of interesting things I noticed. And the first one was, even though all of these things were helpful, and it sounds bad, I'm trying to bag all these things. I'm not, because they all have the kernel of truth about them. But for me, and for nearly everybody else who I either knew or saw in the environment of either the church or at seminars or in spiritual groups, like me, nobody really seemed to be getting the results that we all thought we should. And in fact, it's recognized the success rate in the personal development industry is about 3%.
Okay.
So, and this isn't to bag anybody, but I honestly had to look back and say, well, all of those things didn't really work for me. And I didn't see a transformation in many of the other people I saw doing those things as well. So I thought, well, maybe these aren't the answer.
Okay.
And just learning it, and that's what led me to the brain, which is, I think I found the answer, but it's in quite a different place, if you like.
Sure. You mentioned NLP. Of course, that is Neurolinguistic programming. I think that was coined by Tony Robbins, a great mentor many people know worldwide. But how is NSR
well, it's actually
different?
He learnt NLP from Richard Bandler, who was the founder of Neurolinguistic programming.
Oh, is that
actually.
a fact? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. And he created a spin-off called Neuroassociative Conditioning, which is a bit of a spin-off of NLP.
Okay.
Neurostate rebalancing is quite different. In fact, it shares the word neuro because it's about the brain.
Sure.
But it's really how my understanding of how the brain actually works as a machine, and there are 4 parts to it, which I think you might have mentioned in your introduction. It's how this all works together naturally to give us the life that we're designed to live, which is to be happy and in our definition, successful. And you mentioned a really interesting point earlier when you said not everybody is on the same path. What we need to realize is nobody is on the same path.
Yeah.
Every single person is on a unique path. And one of the problems we have is we try and create a path that's similar to someone else. We try and copy people. There's a famous idea where if somebody is doing what you want to be doing, if they're successful, you just find out what they're doing and you do it and you'll get the same results. And I've tried all of that. But the problem with that is you're copying someone else. You're not going down your own unique path. And one of the first things we need to realize is we all are on a 100% unique path. And so therefore trying to use what I've found and what I believe, use anything else other than our own self-reference about who we are and this infinite computer machine, which already knows who we are and knows what we want and knows how to give it to us. That's the secret, really, to getting this fulfilling and happy life, this life of freedom, emotional freedom, which is what we all want. And not only what we all want, it's what we're supposed to have biologically.
Yeah,
it's what we're designed to have.
I like how you said that, people want to copy. That's been like a tagline or a motto among many of the successful people that I know is, you want to surround yourself with the 5 most successful people that you know, and then you're going to generally go in that same direction. But, you mentioned what they're leaving out is every single one of those 5 successful people, they have their own impulses. They have their own criteria to their life. They have their own stories. They all are individuals. And so it's impossible to copy someone's life exactly. So you'll never get the same results no matter what you do. You might get clues along the way, but you definitely have to hone in onto what's inside of your own self.
Well, here's another interesting point to make about that. If people don't believe how unique they are, each of us, we have 75 trillion cells in our body.
Okay.
And in each one of those cells, we have a double strand of something called proteins, a combination of proteins called DNA.
Mm-hmm.
We've probably all heard of DNA. But what DNA actually is, it's a blueprint for who you are. And it's different for every single person on the planet. And that blueprint has more than 250 million pieces of information about you that is unique to you. And the brain's job is to express the uniqueness of you. Its job is to bring out and express the best of those 250 million pieces of information about you. Now, you don't know what all those 250 million pieces are. Your brain does, because it's an infinitely powerful machine. It knows exactly who you are. So when you try and copy someone else, or even when you try and get an idea from someone else, and there's a difference between getting an idea from someone else and saying, maybe I could use that, maybe that'll be useful, to getting an idea from someone else and saying, well, whatever they're doing is working. I'm just going to do it blindly without thinking. I'm just going to, I'm not going to relate it specific to myself, but I'm just going to force myself to follow it. There's a big difference between that.
Sure.
And the second one doesn't work, whereas the first one does.
Okay.
And part of the way of using your brain the right way is to allow your brain to take you along your own unique path. And that's what I noticed that I was doing that was differently. I was allowing my brain to do the work. And I can explain a bit about how the brain does the work and why you can't force it. But when I started to do that, all sorts of great things started to happen in my life without stress and struggle. I didn't have to force things to happen. The right people showed up. The right opportunities showed up.
Okay.
The right circumstances showed up. And it wasn't a struggle and a stress. And I was allowing my brain machine, this infinite machine, to do its job, which is to say, Liam, get out of the way. I'm here to make you the best you can be. I'm here to make you the happiest you can be. And I know how to do that. Now, you might have some ideas about what you think you need to be happy, but look, they're only limited ideas. They're only ideas you've picked up along the way from other people that you think, well, that might make me happy. I know what's going to make you happy. And it's probably different to what and it is different to what you think it is. Many people think they're going to be happy when they get what they think they want.
Okay.
So they say, when I get $1 million, I'll be happy. When I meet the right person and create a great relationship, then I'll be happy. When I go on that holiday, then I'll be happy. When I fix this relationship I've got, then I'll be happy. When I fix this business that I've got, then I'll be happy. But all of those things, you don't know if they're going to make you happy or not. And so you struggle to try and achieve this thing. And even if you get it, chances are it's not going to make you happy. But it's more likely you're not going to get it. And that's what causes all the stress and struggle in your life, is going after things that actually aren't the right things to go after in the first place.
Right. We have a desire. We have a goal list perhaps written down, and we have like a checklist we got to mark. And like you mentioned, get that job, you get that spouse, you get that house. As long as the check marks fulfill, we assume that we can find happiness. But along the way, we might encounter the wrong thing that we checked off, or maybe we didn't even identify the things that are truly going to make us happy because we've just been conditioned or programmed from the outside world to say, okay, this is what you need in life to be happy, when your mind is telling you something completely different.
That's right. And it's because we don't trust ourselves.
Okay.
We'd rather trust what we've been told by someone outside of us. This is what you need to do to be happy. This is what you really want. You want to be rich. You want to have a great family relationship. Those things you need to have for you to be happy. But I'd rather trust an infinitely powerful computer that knows me better than I know myself. I'd rather trust that to tell me what I need, particularly if it knows how to get it.
Okay. Okay. Nice. So, I've
It's
actually
a bit of a
done.
different way of looking at it.
Well, absolutely. I've loved learning about psychology and philosophy, and of course, I have a religious background. But I was just thinking when you were talking there about a podcast I watched. I think it was the author Simon Sinek was talking about this, and this is the first time I learned about the chemicals inside of our brain. I'm just going to read them off, and I don't know if they have anything to do with what you're writing about, but the chemicals in our brain: adrenaline, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, and of course cortisol. They all interact different ways, and that's what causes different emotions and different thought processes. Is that along the same lines as the 4 parts of the brain that you're talking about? Do they work in conjunction with that?
Absolutely. What those chemicals are is they are signals from your brain to the rest of your body about the state of your environment.
Okay.
So maybe I could go into a little bit, and this is at the core of how your brain works. It's a very powerful mechanism. So basically the way you're supposed to live is you're supposed to enjoy every moment of your life. And your brain is supposed to bring you all the good stuff. Okay. So that means no problems. Because here's the other interesting thing, just as an aside, what are problems? What are problems with any machine? Imagine your car. You're driving a car and something goes wrong with it. There's a problem. Well, say the engine blows up, or you get a flat tire or something. You know that the reason that maybe a flat tire is not a good example, but the engine blowing up, there's a problem with the way that machine is being used.
Yeah.
That's what's created the problem. It's not actually the problem with the machine itself, because if you have a car and it's got all the right fuel in it and everything is operating properly, and you're pressing the right levers, you're not so that everything goes, then the car doesn't create problems, and it gives you a smooth ride, and it gets you to where you want to go enjoyably without you having to worry and get stressed about it. But if you get into the car and you go, what are all these levers and buttons here? Oh, what's this thing here? And it's the handbrake. And you don't know that you have to release the handbrake before you can move, and you try and move the car with the handbrake still on, you're not going to get anywhere. It's going to be stressful. You're going to be confused. You're going to create problems both for yourself and for the car.
Right. You overwork the car and you burn out the engine or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're using it the wrong way. So the brain is exactly the same. And how the brain actually works, just to come back to your point about these chemicals in our brain, your brain is supposed to bring to you everything you need all of the time to make you feel really good and feel really happy. Because when you're feeling good and happy, that's your best chance of survival. That's your best of surviving and thriving. So your brain is constantly trying to keep you in that state where you've got the greatest chance for survival. So how it does that, and we have a word for that. In scientific terms, we call it homeostasis. Homeostasis means the perfect functioning of the organism. And it's not just for humans, it's for all living creatures. So that means all of the physical functions like breathing, heart rate, digestion, all of those things, every organ is working perfectly, and every mental function is working perfectly as well. You're feeling great, you're feeling good, sometimes called in the flow or in the zone, or even enlightenment is another word that's used for this state. That's your natural, I call it your creative state. So that's the way we're supposed to be all the time. And how the brain keeps you in that state is it uses the thinking brain. Remember, there are 4 parts of your brain. So the thinking part, or the neocortex, that gathers in all of the information that you're experiencing in every moment from your 5 senses and also your thoughts. And all of this information is coming into your brain through your thinking brain, and instantaneously it goes to the part that I call the emotional brain, which is the amygdala and the hippocampus, which are located just below your thinking brain, if you like.
Okay.
And the role of that part of your brain is to decide whether the information about your environment, to decide what it means. Now, if it means it's safe, so it interprets everything that's happening to you or that's coming at you. And if it says, right, everything's good, everything's safe, your environment's fine, it produces the hormones that make you feel good, like oxytocin that you just mentioned. So it's a signal from your emotional part of your brain to the rest of you, all in the clear, stay feeling good, the world is a great place, the world is safe.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's the way you're supposed to live nearly all of the time. But there's one time when you're not supposed to be like that. And that's when you do face an immediate threat or danger, something that could kill you or seriously harm you physically. So here's your thinking brain, bring in all this information. And once in a while, your emotional brain says, this means danger. Okay, so it might be in prehistoric times, a lion appears roaring at you.
Right. You got to get out of there
from
quickly.
out of the forest. Yeah. So when your emotional brain, your amygdala and hippocampus, when that makes the decision that you're facing danger, it stops producing those good feeling hormones and it produces hormones that make you feel bad, that make you feel fear, which are adrenaline and cortisol primarily.
Sure.
So that's a signal from your emotional brain that things aren't good. And to get out of your creative state, your natural, good, happy state, and feel fear and feel anxiety. Now, you need to do that. We know why this happens. It's called the fight, flight, or freeze response mechanism, the survival instinct. We've heard of this. And what it does is very interesting in terms of the effect on your brain, because it snaps you out of this creative, good feeling state into a reactive state. And it activates something called the sympathetic nervous system. And what your sympathetic nervous system does is it takes all of the resources from your body to focus on and eliminate the immediate threat and danger that you're facing. So, and this is beyond your thinking, because as you know, we've all been in that experience where you just react to a danger. You're not thinking. There's some other part of your brain that's just automatically getting you to do something, whether it be run away, shout, stand and fight, all of those things. And we know when we feel fear, how our heart rate increases, our breathing increases. We're ready to fight off this danger, and we react to deal with it as quickly as we can. So that's absolutely perfect for what that is. This switch, if you like, that the emotional brain does to say, the world is dangerous, you're in a dangerous situation, activate the sympathetic nervous system, get everything moving to get rid of this danger here and now. Well, one of the interesting things that it does when you activate your sympathetic nervous system is that it shuts down all of those things that are your effective tools for living a happy life.
Okay.
So it shuts down your imagination, your creativity, your awareness, your wider awareness. You know how sometimes you get gut feelings about, is this good or bad? Your evaluation of things. It also shuts down your motivation, which is why when you feel bad, you don't want to do very much.
Okay.
Because all of that is shut down. Because when you think about it, none of those things are useful when you're dealing with an immediate danger.
Yeah.
If a lion runs at you through the forest, you don't want your brain saying, well, let's evaluate this situation and come up with a strategic plan on the various options we might have for dealing with this danger. And is it really that bad after all? Because look at the beautiful flowers here. And I can feel the breeze on my skin. And, maybe life's not so bad after all. All of that is blocked, because if you thought any of that, if you did any thinking, you're going to be dead. You can't hesitate.
Sure.
So the sympathetic nervous system, it not only blocks off all of that, but it gets you totally focused on the negative, because its job is to seek out, where is the danger? Are there any more threats? Are there any more dangers? What are the problems? What am I facing? Are there other sounds here that could cause danger? So in that state, we're totally wired to deal with an immediate threat and get rid of it as fast as possible. And that's 100% our focus. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely perfect. But what's the problem with most people in their life? They're feeling fear, stress, worry.
Yeah. In fact, that's what I was going to go with. I was going to go with the fact that in this high-tech world, high-impulse world with television and social media and bad news and every single day about something or other, people are always in a state of fear. They're always in a state of panic. And so what you're saying is that because of that, they're overloading that chemical of fight or flight, and they're always trying to decide something, right? And often it leads them to make one bad decision after another because they're not using that part of the brain that stems, the creative impulse and idea thinking, right?
Well, that's the whole point, is the part of your brain that can solve your problems, that knows exactly what you should do and what should happen. You've blocked all that access to that part.
Okay.
And you're just in a reactive state. And you're trying to, and being in a reactive state, you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to force things to happen. You're making the wrong decisions. You're doing things out of impulse. You know, people who shout at I do marriage and relationship coaching, as I explained. And one of the big things people talk about is having arguments. And they don't know why they have arguments. And they say, well, if we just stopped arguing, our relationship would be better. But why do we argue? Why do we shout at each other? And what it is, when they're in a stressed, fearful state, their brain says the quickest way for you to feel better is to shout at the other person.
Yeah, sure.
Now, it only works for an instant, and it certainly doesn't improve the situation. It makes it worse. But your brain is just looking for a quick fix, a quick way to get out of that immediate feeling, bad feeling, and you do feel slightly better probably for a short instance because you feel like you're in a bit more of control of the situation.
Yeah.
But the crazy part is when you're in this state of fear and anxiety, you literally on a physical level block off your ability to solve whatever problems you have. And you block off your awareness of the true situation. And this is manifested in so many ways. One is people are wandering around all stressed about things they shouldn't be stressed about and worried about things they shouldn't be worried about, which from a higher perspective, if they weren't, they would see the truth. Well, why am I worried about this situation? What is the likelihood of me being harmed by this thing I see on the news? In reality, you know, and you see sometimes people come out and say, well, the chances of you dying from a whatever disease or a certain situation is you're more likely to get hit by lightning or something. But we ignore all of those things because our brain thinks it's a bigger problem than it actually is.
Sure.
And a real clue to this is how often when we have a friend or we see someone else and they've got a big problem in their life, perhaps they've got a marriage crisis, we can see very clearly what they should do. We say to them, look, why are you persevering with this marriage? It's the wrong one for you. The person treats you badly. You don't like each other. Get out of it. Go and find somebody different. You can see it so clearly, and you know that it's the right answer. It's the solution. It would solve all their problems. But they can't see that. And it's not that they don't want to see it. They literally can't see it. So they say things to you like, oh, no, I'm going to make it work, and I'm going to try and get him to go to counseling with me, and we can fix this. And, you know, I know that relationships are hard and a struggle, but I'm going to fight and I'm going to heal it. And you're thinking, why are you saying all this? You're just in the wrong relationship. It's been abusive for years, or maybe it used to be good, but it's no good for you anymore. So we can see for other people the right solution to problems, but we can't see it for ourselves because we're emotionally stressed about our own situation.
Right.
But while we're in that state, you know, this is the thing, you will never fix your problems if you're in this reactive, if you're feeling fear, stress, worry, you literally block off all of your brain's resources, the part of your brain that says, I know what's right for you. I know how to fix your problem. I know how to stop you making more trouble for yourself and creating more problems for yourself. I can help you avoid making problems. And how many times, as you said, we make silly decisions because we're all stressed, worried, afraid, thinking, oh, you know, I must make this decision. And we spend so much time cleaning up messes from things we should never have done in the first place.
Yeah. One of my mentors used to say all the time that, never make any kind of decision when you're in a bad mood, because that's not your true self.
Absolutely right.
And
but it's easier said than done, isn't it?
Right. So I mean, people get blinded by their emotions, they get blinded by their circumstances, and there's some part of every person who wants to be successful in a relationship, who wants to be successful in whatever challenge you're overcoming, but yet I don't know, maybe you can offer some tips about how we can actually rechannel that energy to focus on the things that are important to us, because obviously in my life I've had many challenges, I've had many circumstances that I regret now looking back. And I said, if I only saw a different side of the situation from when I was experiencing it. But is it through meditation? Is it through, some kind of counseling? How are you able to discover those things for yourself?
Well, there's a couple of things. A really quick tip for people, something I can do immediately, is when you're faced in a really bad situation, what you think is a bad situation, usually you're saying to yourself, why is this happening to me? So why am I in this situation? Why is this happening to me? I certainly asked myself that a lot when I was homeless, and I had to move in with my elderly mother and sleep on her sofa in her living room. Why is this happening to me? But instead of asking yourself, why is this happening to me? Ask yourself instead, why is this happening for me?
Okay.
Not why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me?
So it's a different kind of question then.
And that different question changes your perspective.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you've have a lot of regrets. I think if you, and I'm not trying to do any coaching here, but I think we can all look back at things and say, if we feel regret about something, there's a different way to look at it and to see that it's an actual gift.
Yeah. Okay.
Many people could say losing everything when I was in my mid-40s. I wasn't like a young person, and well, that's relatively young, I guess. But many people would get bitter and twisted about that and say, oh, that's, I've got all these things to overcome and all the trauma and scars, emotional scarring from etc. and all of these things. I look at it now as from a different perspective. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It was a great gift. And I think we can all look at every single thing that happens to us in our life and realize that they are gifts, that they are things that are contributing to who and what we are right now. And they're a perfect step along the journey, that we wouldn't be where we are without any of them.
Sure. Now that element of gratitude, for me, it came from a religious background, where, everything, we're blessed in everything that we do. For those who believe in a higher power or God, God wants to bless us in the good and the bad. That's why he gives us challenges and lessons. But, you mentioned earlier when you were saying that it wasn't religion that helped you find that stuff within yourself. It was something deeper deeper or more introspective than just merely being in a religious environment.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned religion and you say you're religious, you have a religious background as well, because what I've discovered when I did all the study about the brain is the Bible. I presume you're Christian. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bible actually is the greatest success manual on how to use your brain the right way that exists.
Okay.
Because what I was explaining about how your brain works and how you can't solve any problems when you're in a fear state because you block all your access to your problem-solving ability. You also block your brain's ability to just give you the perfect life, to get you doing the right things and stop you doing the wrong things. Your brain has the power to do that. Not only has the power, it's designed to protect you through life. Sure. It's designed to keep you away from problems. And in the Bible, it tells you how to do this. Excuse me. Because it says in the Bible more than 360 times, someone's counted, be not afraid.
Yeah.
Be not afraid. Now, it's not saying that because this is some nice idea and just believe. It's saying that's how your brain works. You can't function properly as a human being when you're afraid. You can't allow the greatness of you, the gift of what's in your DNA to be expressed fully when you're afraid, because that's all blocked off. And even Jesus said, do not be anxious. Do not be anxious about tomorrow. Do not be anxious about what you will wear or what you will eat, about what you will eat and you will drink, because look at all of the lilies in the field and how beautiful they are, and yet they're here today and gone tomorrow. Right. Aren't you so much more? Don't you think I've got so much more? Yeah, sorry, my quote here is going a bit astray, but it's the gist of it. Don't you think you're much greater than that? So don't worry about tomorrow. Don't be anxious. So what God is actually saying in the Bible is your access to your perfection is through using this brain machine the right way.
Okay.
And that's what you've got to do. But, God can't give you a machine and give you the result you want if you don't use the machine the right way. He can only give you the machine. You're the one who has to, and he's given the instructions on how to use it.
Yeah.
But you have to use it the right way. And when you do, you'll get the right results. And those are the right results. And problems actually, if you look at it from a logical point of view, what are problems? Problems are a sign that you're using the machine the wrong way. That's how you end up with problems.
Okay.
Because problems aren't natural. Problems don't do anything to help your life. I know we have this idea that, you grow through problems and problems are good because they make you stronger. There's much better ways to be stronger than through problems.
That's interesting. I want to tap in that a little bit, because I was gonna push back a little bit, because I was always taught that the not that you want to welcome problems, but there's always a lesson in every single problem that you encounter. So there is something that you can learn from, looking back, but you're saying that you don't have to encounter those challenges, those problems in your life. How do you acquire the wisdom to get around that without experiencing the problem itself in the first place?
Well, if you take that line of questioning or that question to its logical conclusion, that means you can't learn anything apart from through pain. Okay. And we know that's not true. You can learn lots of life lessons through good things. You can learn to love, to be grateful, and all of those things through good experiences. So you don't need problems to teach you lessons. You can learn lessons the other way. But the key is, if you understand how your brain works, which is explained in the Bible, it is explained scientifically, and that's what I'm sort of trying to explain now. If you understand how your brain works, when you have that level of understanding, that's when you develop trust. It's like your car. You don't get into your car and don't trust that it's going to take you to where you want to go if you drive it properly. You don't think about it. You don't expect problems. You don't try and prepare for problems. You don't try and figure stuff out or worry as you're driving along whether you're going to get there or not. You just know that's the way it works. That's what's supposed to do. I'm using it the right way. It's going to take me there, and I can just enjoy the ride. Sure. So the more you understand about your brain and how that works, and that it is a machine designed to do exactly the same thing, then the less you naturally worry, because you think it's just doing its job. And this is what faith actually is. Faith isn't just this blind hope, because most of what people say is faith, that when they're in a stress state, they're just anxious, hoping something will work out, but they don't really believe it's going to.
Okay.
Their faith in something doesn't come from a trust. It comes from a desperation, if you like. And that's what blocks prayer. I mean, God doesn't want to hear you say, please give me this, when God or infinite intelligence knows that it's not best for you. It's not going to give it to you. God is not going to give you something that's not good for you, no matter how badly you think you want it. It's a bit like a little child saying just before dinner time, please, can I have an ice cream? The parent's going to say, no, you can't. And it doesn't matter how much you want it. I know it's not good for you to have it. So, I'm sorry, I love you and care for you enough, and I know enough about you and that you don't know, that it's simply not right for you. So when you know this about your brain, when you know how it works, how it's designed to get your life working, you can actually allow it to do its job without getting all stressed and worried. And that's when the things show up, the right things show up for you, for your own unique path. And then you can just act on what shows up. Now, of course, you have to play your part. I'm not saying you just sit back and money washes all over your body or things just happen to you. But when you really think about it too, most of the significant things that happen in our lives are not really things we plan for. The person we meet who becomes our husband or our wife, we don't sit down the day before and say, right, tomorrow at 9 a.m. I am going to meet the person I'm going to marry, and this is what they're going to look like, and these are all the qualities they have. It's unexpected, isn't it? So where did that come from? Well, if you believe and you know from a scientific perspective there are no random events in the universe, your brain with its infinite power never brings you anything random. That's why everything that happens to you is perfect. But it never brings anything random to you. You know that if you just stay in that state and you keep your creative brain working right, all of the right things are going to come to you at the right time. You're going to take the right action, and you're going to get the right result to give you what you really want and what you're supposed to have, which is to feel happy, to be at your best, and to give you the greatest chance of survival.
Now, how is that different than, say, somebody who wants to just read affirmations all day long? And, they may have we go back to that goal checklist. I want this, I want that. Or they tell themselves good messages. They put themselves into good situations. I mean, obviously, your brain is reacting to the impulses of the world around you. So there's not always good impulses flowing to you. But, you said that God, infinite intelligence, wants to give you those things. So how do you channel that in to make sure that you are receiving that stuff correctly?
Well, the thing you have to be mindful of is fear. So you have to be on your guard to protect yourself from anything that makes you feel bad. And that includes watching the news. It includes talking to people who don't make you feel good, or talking about a subject that doesn't make you feel good. Yeah. Because this is all mental nutrition. Okay. If you drink a glass of hydrochloric acid, you're going to be very sick It's not good for you. It's you're going to damage and harm yourself.
Yeah.
So what? And it doesn't matter if someone offers you $1 million or whatever to drink that hydrochloric acid. You're not going to drink it because you know that it's really bad for you. So why do we put mental nutrition and mental stuff into our brain that we know is bad for us? We wouldn't do it, would we? We would do everything we could to stop feeding our brain mentally with stuff that makes us feel bad, because we know when we feel bad, what happens? We activate the sympathetic nervous system. We cut off our brain's ability to give us the life we're supposed to have. That's it. So the name
challenge
of the game
is to be actively avoiding the toxins in your world, the toxicity that life will offer people. The challenge is to actively go around that kind of stuff, avoid it, shun it, throw it away, whatever you need to do.
Well, that makes logical sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You wouldn't put anything into your system that wasn't good for you, that wasn't going to help you. And that's not being selfish, because the more you help yourself, the more creative and resourceful you are, the more you're able to help other people.
Okay.
So it's actually the ultimate in generosity, is to put yourself in a state where you can give the most. And we all know that when people are loving, creative, and feeling really good about themselves, they're the ones who give. They're the ones who are the most inspiring to be around, and who make the biggest impact on other people, the most positive impact on other people.
So yeah, I mean, obviously the clue is, and it seems very obvious when we're just talking here, but it's not the easiest thing, is to avoid the negativity, the negative impulses in your life, to avoid the toxins, to avoid things that are cause damage intentionally. Unfortunately, I know many people who are kind of attracted to that kind of thing. I don't know why they would be, but that it's like they carry a black cloud around them of just this negative stuff. And those are the kind of people that, you want to push out of your life if you have to. You might find yourself in a bad relationship with somebody who brings that kind of spirit. I'll call it that. And that's no amount of counseling will actually help that if that person isn't willing to, clear that for themselves. Correct?
Absolutely. And that is the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges in life. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Okay. Well, you know what? Why don't we finish on those thoughts, just so we don't run into internet problems again, and we'll just kind of wrap up this conversation here.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's going on, but anyway.
So, you have written. Okay, so I'm gonna ask this question in a different way here. So, since you said you were homeless and penniless, and you lost all your business in the past, and you've discovered these new truths about how the brain works, your career has taken off in a different direction, or you are doing some of the same work that you were doing in the past, just with a different perspective?
No, this is all very new. I do marriage and relationship coaching. And incorporate these ideas into that. But I also have expanded my work really into life coaching. Okay. So I've written a number of books. I've got a couple of podcasts, one about marriage and relationships, and the other one about all of this brain stuff, which really explains in a lot more detail about how your brain works and why it's supposed to give you the results, or how you have the power to get the results you really want. And I also do coaching. And I have a coaching program where I've developed a method, because the question people ask is, how do you do this? Mm-hmm. It's all very well to say this is the way your brain's supposed to work, but how do I get rid of my brain telling me, how do I stop my brain from telling me that to feel fear, to feel worry, to feel anxiety? And one way is to sort of limit what stuff you bring in. But even if you do that, you still have these thoughts. Your brain is working you've trained it in the wrong way. Okay. So what neurostate rebalancing does, it's a process to get your brain identifying the difference between what there is to be afraid of and what there isn't. And that way you only feel in this fear state when you really do have an immediate problem or immediate danger. Okay. And most of the time you're not in that state, and that's when you can really tackle your life. That's when you can really get in control of your life. You can use the full resources of this infinite brain to bring you the solutions, bring you the motivation, the right ideas, and all of those things, because that's the state that you need to be in if you want to make your life work. It's as simple as that. Right. But that's what I teach through. That's why I developed neurostate rebalancing as a way to do that. And really, it's the most effective way I know of to do that.
So you mentioned you've written several books. What would be? I think you have a best-selling book in one of those?
I
Using your
have
brain for success. Is that the name of your book? Or is that your podcast?
That's my podcast. I've got a book coming out with a similar title.
Okay.
But most of my other books are on relationships. And a lot of them have been bestsellers at various times on Kindle. But there's several there if people want to look at. I mean, really, you can find all this information on my website, all my books and podcasts and everything else.
What is your website?
Oh, it's just simply my name, liamnaden.com.
liamnaden.com. Well, Liam, this has been a fantastic conversation so far. We're having internet problems, so we're going to cut it short a little bit. I think maybe sometime down the road we can connect again. I definitely I want to dive into the avenue of marriage and relationships and that kind of stuff, but this is going to be for a different topic for another day, I think. But I really do believe it's all connected. So,
absolutely.
So
relationships are the key to our life, aren't they, in many ways?
All right. Well, if you understand that your brain is a machine and, it works a specific way based on the impulses that you feed it. And there are several exercises you can do to receive the right impulses and exercise that creativity in your brain and get rid of that mechanism that causes fear and anxiety and ultimately leads to bad decisions and bad circumstances. And, we definitely want to learn how to use our brain correctly. I have one last question for Liam. I kind of throw this on people just to see if they've been paying attention. But I call my show the Invictus Mind. Okay, and we've been talking about your mind and your brain for the last hour. So I just got to ask, are you Invictus?
Absolutely.
Well, somebody who's been able to be successful, had a fall, and then learned the keys to pick themselves back up, and now coaching and teaching other people to learn the things that he's learned, I think that would qualify. So I want to thank you for your time. And
thank you very much for having me, Mike.
It's been very helpful.